Hey, what's going on, guys? Henry Kaminski here from the Brand to Table podcast. I've been in the restaurant game for 16 years, helping hundreds of restaurants with their marketing and branding strategy. This show is dedicated to all the restaurant owners out there that are looking to level up and create stronger messaging and stronger marketing for their restaurants. Today, we're going to be talking about brand story and how important that is in differentiating your restaurant from the hundreds of restaurants that are probably in your neck of the woods. What I notice is a lot of restaurants post a lot of food imagery, but it lacks the story. It lacks the feeling behind what that post was all about. So how do we create more feeling in our content and get our viewers excited and hungry about coming into our restaurant versus our competitors? So we have to start to think more strategically on, all right, why am I creating this post and what outcome do I want to get out of this post? And then come up with the proper post caption, come up with the proper post outline that is going to help you get more guests coming in the door. So one thing we have to understand is Instagram is full of noise. I mean, how many times do you catch yourself taking a break, opening up Instagram, and next thing you know, you're scrolling and you look at your watch and it's like 20 minutes later? So we know that Instagram is a huge distraction because there's so much content to consume. So what are we going to do to kind of break through all that noise and get people thinking about our restaurants and booking reservation at our restaurants versus the other competition? All right, so let's get into it. What are 3 types of stories you could tell on social media that is going to get people excited about your restaurant? Well, the first story that I would recommend you start to put together is the owner's story. Like why the restaurant even exists in the first place and what made you, restaurant owner, get excited to open this place. What inspired you? Was it a generational thing? Was it your frustration over something that happened in the past where you said, you know what, I'm going to open up my own shop and this is how we're going to do it and this is how we're going to stand out? That's very important to your guests. They are so excited to hear that story because that's what they're buying. Anybody could go anywhere and get a slice of pizza, but if that slice of pizza tells such a unique story where they prefer your pizza over the competitors, who won? You. But if you just took a picture of that photo and slapped it up on Instagram, what deciphers that piece of pizza over the next one they're going to see in their feed? Nothing. So very important there. The next story that I think is so important, but very much overlooked, is your guest's story. One very simple way to tell your guest story is simply go through your Open Table reviews, your 7-Room reviews, your Google reviews, and take a look at some of those 5 stars and what those people said about your restaurant. How long will it take you to literally screenshot that review and plug it into your Instagram story? Probably take you no more than 15 seconds. That is a phenomenal way to share your guests' stories. You might get a guest that's so excited about your spot, they might even be willing to be recorded. So maybe you mic them up and you pull them aside after a dinner one night and just on your iPhone. You could go as simple as that to get their story and get their point of view on your restaurant. You know how far that would go on social media when it comes to people's connection? They're going to be like, that guy sounds like me, or that guy had the same dish I had, and or I've never had that dish before. Sounds amazing. Next time I come, I'm going to grab it. So having that guest story being told is one way to really, really create that connection and create that feeling. Today, guys, we're talking about feeling. We're not talking about food. That is what's going to drive revenue. That's what's going to drive reservations and covers, is if you could evoke more feeling out of your viewerships than the next restaurant. The third story is something that we talked about in the past, but we're going to go in a little deeper now, is your brand's story and where that originated from. I'll give you a quick example. Working with a restaurant, and they're in the center of town. And before the restaurant was built, the town knew the owner. And the town said to the owner, you know, we've seen your development work and real estate development, and we would love for you to help us to create a town center. And you could put your restaurant dead smack in the middle of it, but we would love for you to help us create that. Imagine a town reaching out to you and asking you to create something like that. At first, it probably feels super overwhelming, and you're like, how the hell am I going to do this? I'm not in the restaurant business, right? But he took the bull by the horns, and he started to scratch ideas on napkins. This is a story that was told to me. Then he started talking to his colleagues and partners, and next thing you know, this napkin got bigger and bigger. And within 2 years, a 22,000 square foot restaurant was built in the dead center of that town. And now it's been open for over 10 years. That story has so many more details to it. And I'm going to, abbreviate because I don't want this podcast to be, 3 hours long. But there's so many details that he could pull from that origin story and break apart and tell a little bit of that story over here and a little bit of that story over there. That is going to resonate. That is going to sink deep into people's core, and they're going to want to come to that restaurant because it stands for something. So when I came into the restaurant and I started asking the restaurant about their brand's vision, their brand's mission, the values that stand behind that brand. And a lot of the answers that were given to me by the leadership team was, we stand for the hard-working American. And we stand for those people that will do what it takes to put food on their families' plates and to create something from nothing. So, we started to think about some of the, construction workers and some of the laborers and those types of people, right? And we started to develop a plan to speak to those types of people, right? And that's what is going to help you, again, make that connection that other restaurants can't do because they're not thinking like that. I was talking to one of my buddies the other day, and he was like, dude, your content's great, but some of these restaurant owners, especially in the pizza business, like they're worried about their next dough order, their next dripping of sauce, their next, they're not thinking about Instagram ads. They're just thinking about how they're going to open their door the next day. And I get that. But let's just say you took a second to take a breather and to start thinking a little bit more strategically about what it is that you want to do. I've been told this by business coaches my whole life. And they said to me, you can't keep doing the same thing and expecting different results. And I think that was told to me probably 12 years ago. And it still resonates to this day. And that's why this podcast exists. That's why I'm creating so much different types of content, because I'm trying different things. I want to see what's going to hit and what's not going to hit. But I'm very strategic about it. I'm very thoughtful about it. And that's all I'm asking you to do. I'm not asking you to create some 14-page marketing plan for your restaurant. No, that's something that we can do for you. What I'm having you think about is the intention and the objective of each piece of communication that you put out on social media, and to be a little bit more thoughtful about it, because once you start to put in that effort starts to compound and you start to see some really great results. All right, here's 4 little tactical tips that I think you can implement with without question and with such ease that are going to really help you drive more engagement, more viewership, more following to your Instagram or social media accounts in general. Number one is start with a real moment. If you guys are hosting a private event, see if you could take some behind the scenes shots, of course, with permission, of that event itself. Get the smiles on people's faces, get the hugs, get the kisses, get the reaction to the food that's being eaten, and put that out there and show people that this is what happens when you come to our restaurant for your special moment. See, people are so interested in other people's experiences. It builds trust that I don't think a lot of people think about consciously. So if you have that type of content that you could put out there, feel free to do that, obviously with permission, like I said, and you're going to start to see people say, you know what? Don't we have Mother's Day coming up? Or don't we have a baptism coming up? Or don't we have a communion coming up? Let's have it at XYZ venue. Now we're talking. So that one image you may think that one image is pointless, but yet it has so much value that could turn into revenue in just a few weeks' time. I can't emphasize enough, but show more people than plates. I know it sounds so counterintuitive, and I know it sounds like something that just doesn't make sense because you're a restaurant. But think about it. If every picture that you post is a picture of food, how do you tell your story through that dish? How do you get people to connect with that piece of meat or that salad? It's so much harder. So my suggestion is you sprinkle that type of content in, but never forget to get in front of that camera. And if it's not you in front of that camera, maybe it's your chef, maybe it's your server, maybe it's your bartender, but get your team involved. When I was getting my master's degree, one of my professors, who I had multiple times during that process, he always said to us, always allocate your resources and reallocate your resources when needed. And so that stuck in my head for over 20 years now. And you have a tremendous amount of resources with your team that you put together. So if it's not you, maybe it's one of them. And maybe it's a collaborative effort. Maybe you do it with them, right? I had a podcast way before this one, and when I was first starting out, it was tough to do these solo episodes because it was like, how do I talk in front of a lens like this and imagine that there's a human being sitting in front of me? And it was extremely difficult. So what I did was I started bringing guests on. And it was so much easier because it was just like having a conversation, and the conversation flowed. It was very natural until I built up enough muscle to actually, do solo episodes like this. Now, mind you, I have some really cool guests coming on the show very soon. You guys are going to be really, really excited about. One of the guys that's coming on the show, the Eat Clean Bro guy, Jamie, he's coming on the show. I have Peter Falzo from Vinny's Pan Pizza coming on the show soon. I have Eugene and Trona from the nightlife industry and the New York Minute coming on the show. Like, we have some really cool guests coming on the shows, and you guys are going to gain so much knowledge from their expertise and their experience. I just can't wait. But it just goes to show, like, I allocated my resources. I figured it out, and I made something from nothing. And I think that's how you tell a better story. Here's a quick little pro tip here that we learn just by doing this hundreds and times over again, is when you're posting a video, let's say it's a reel or a story, if you put a little text overlay over that video, that's going to grab somebody's attention. It's going to work better than if there was no text overlay. Think of that text overlay as like the hook that just grabs their attention for that quick second to get them to watch the next few seconds, because that's what the Instagram and social media algorithms are all about. They want you to watch a couple of seconds of the video, and then they see if you have still the interest to watch further, and they segment those videos just like that. So if you make it 3 segments in, that video is getting shown to 1,000 more people. So think about that. It's a little tactical thing, but it makes such a difference. We started doing it with our own content, and we see such a huge difference in the viewership, in the engagement. So that's a quick little tactical tip that you could do in 5 seconds next time you post a video. I think it's going to create some great results for you. Another storytelling tip, again, on the tactical side, but I think it's really going to help you. I want to give you really simple ideas here. That's what the show's all about. But instead of you saying, our new pasta is here for the month of August, maybe you change that language to, we are coming out for the month of August with a pasta dish that came from my own Nonna's recipe that has been passed down to the grandchildren for over 80 years. Now I'm more interested in that pasta dish because I want to know how Nonna cooked it. Like, it's that simple, guys. Simple little tweaks like that go such a long way in building that brand story about your restaurant. So guys, if you're having a blast so far, make sure you drop a review, subscribe, leave a comment, share this with a restaurant owner that you may know or somebody in the industry that is going to get some value out of this. And let me know if you have any questions or concerns, or you have a topic you want me to highlight in a future episode. I'm always hanging out on Instagram. Shoot me a DM, and I'm happy to put something together that's going to help not only you, but other fellow restaurant owners in the industry. All right, guys, a couple mistakes I want you to avoid when telling your brand story. So remember, guys, this isn't about you. And I know that's hard to kind of digest, but it's about your guests. So you have to make sure that you're connecting the dots. Why is this story important for your guests? And when you switch that mindset, your language and the way that you position that conversation is going to go in a completely different direction. People want to be able to relate to that story. So when you talk about them in the story, it's going to that magnetism is going to be 10 times stronger than you just talking about yourself over and over and over again. Okay, it's one thing to talk about the dish and talk about how it was made, but let's talk about the experience. Let's talk about why you created the dish, why this dish has so much history behind it. That is going to be a lot more interesting and intriguing than just talking about the same old chicken parm or the same old rigatoni or the same old. It doesn't hit. And I think that's something that we have to always keep in mind is this story even worth telling? And I know that one's tough to digest, but I think every story is worth telling, but it's how you tell the story and what you want that person to get out of that story. It makes the difference between a rotten story and a phenomenal story. And I'd be foolish not to remind you guys about hooks to stories and how tremendously important hooks are when telling stories. And this is something that I continuously try to improve upon myself. And your hook is the first 3 seconds of that story. So if I were going to put a story together for your brand, I would spend probably an hour to an hour and a half for the first 10 seconds of your story. Why? Because it's the most important part. If people don't get past the first 10 seconds of your story, everything past that doesn't matter because they haven't seen it and they're not going to see it. So I put a lot of effort into the first 1 to 10 seconds of any video I put out, not only for myself, but for my clients, because that is what's going to get the person to watch the next text. that's going to get the person to watch the next 10 seconds and then the next 10 seconds after that. So pay attention to your hooks. Make sure that they're strong. Maybe ask a question. Maybe create a cliffhanger, something that's going to get them past the first 10 seconds. You get them past the first 10 seconds, good chances are they're going to watch the rest of the video. All right, guys, so here's what I want you to do next. Sit down for 10, 15 minutes. And I know that's a struggle sometimes for you restaurant owners, but sit down and maybe write out, whether it be on your phone or on pen and paper, write out 5 to 10 stories that you never told about your restaurant. Like just one line. And start to consider putting those stories into the formats that we talked about today. And think about exactly what we said. What's the objective? What's the goal? How does this make me different than the other competitors that are out there? And start to build on those stories. And again, this does not have to be a Hollywood production. You take out your phone, you get your wife to film you, or you start to film a server, whatever it takes to get the content done. I think people get so caught up on how much production value needs to go into something. Now, I'm not mocking high production value videos. I get a lot of inspiration from them, but we're talking about busy restaurant owners where every minute counts. So taking out that phone could be the best tool on your belt that you own when it comes to marketing your restaurant, standing out from all the noise, and creating connection with your followers, with your community, and with your guests. All right, guys. So if you get anything out of today's episode, remember this. Food grabs the people's attention, but the stories that you tell really build the connection. So there you have it, guys. Another episode in the books. Again, my name's Henry Kaminski Jr. from Brand to Table. Let me know what you thought about today's episode. Make sure that you like, comment, subscribe, share it with a friend, and check us out on the next episode. Can't wait to see you then, and have an amazing day, and we'll catch you on the next episode.